Hello everybody, it's me, Werfs, and welcome to the first episode in the Get Good to Get God series. A series aimed to help intermediate to advanced players not only reach God rank, but stay in the top 50 as well. Today we'll be covering something that's fairly basic just to ease into the series. So what's the topic today? Decision making. Because of Faria's living board and resource rollover design, every decision you make can create a huge impact on the game state 2, 3, 4 turns down the road. Now, when I say decision making, I don't mean something simple like, should I flame burst this water elemental type of decisions. I personally like to split decision making into two categories, general decision making and turn by turn decision making. What does that mean? Well, what I mean is, in general decision making, this is the type of decision making that will affect how you play against certain matchups. So the questions I asked to myself in order are, what cards in my opening hand am I going to mulligan away, and what am I mulliganing those cards away for? After I get my new hand after the mulligan, I ask myself, what can I accomplish with my starting hand? Depending on what starting hand you get, you may decide to play the game at a different pace. For example, I start with a double axe grinder with a ground shaker. I'll play the game a lot faster than if I started with something like double Grimguard and an underground brigand. So once my opponent has revealed what their deck is, I ask myself the most important question. What is my win condition in this matchup, and what do I need to do with my deck in order to reach that win condition? For example, let's say I'm playing a very standard red combat list against a very standard mono green list. What are my win conditions? Getting maximum value off of Gift of Steels on combat creatures, finding ways to create a huge cipher that can, continue to eat more and more creatures until even green creatures can no longer deal with. So, what do I do with my cards that will let me achieve this goal? I make sure to play my combat creatures in safe positions away from Horsemaster or Grovecrawler plays until I get enough copies of Gift of Steel to make that huge value trade and swing the board. I'll save my Flame Burst and Emperor's Commands and Horsemasters until I can get a creature into range of being eaten by Cypher and start snowballing the game in my favor from there on. In short, figure out what your win condition is and play towards that goal. Now, the second category would be turn-by-turn decision making. Turn-by-turn decision making is pretty self-explanatory. It's where you should be checking and calculating for every single turn. In order, this is what I check over the course of my every turn. Number 1. Do I have lethal? One of the easiest things to miss in a high-intensity game is often checking for lethal every turn come late game. He heals, that's bad. Oh shoot, that means we can still actually die. Nope, never mind, we win. Oh, why did I +1? I could just collect. Okay, whatever, it's fine, guys. Oh, I missed lethal. I missed lethal! I could have hit my own guy! And then last night I hit my own guy, I missed lethal. Oh, that's awkward. Oh, that's bad. I missed lethal. If I don't have lethal, what is my strongest play for this turn? I further split this question into more points. Clock checking. The clock is a term most players use to denote how many turns they have to kill their opponents versus how many turns their opponent has to kill them. If you and your opponent are in a face race, which is very common, check the clock. In a face race, I always ask myself, can my opponent lethal me next turn? If they can, how can I slow down their clock? If they can't lethal me, then I ask myself, how can I set up a lethal where it's nearly impossible for my opponent to react to? After that, I ask myself, what will my opponent's next turn be, and how can I disrupt it? If your opponent is playing a Gemshell Turtleoise deck and is sitting on 3 lakes and 2 mountains with 5 Faria, you bet next turn they're going to put down a mountain and put down that Gemshell Turtleoise. So how do we disrupt that gameplay as much as possible? One thing that comes to mind is setting up as much pressure as possible on that orb. Make that 8 cost card, that Turtleoise, a liability to play. If Red Combat just passed the turn sitting on 8 Faria, they're definitely setting up for a Garridan board clear. How do we play around that? Don't overextend further onto the board. Force your opponent to lose as much value as possible. The next question I ask myself would be, can I clear the board or do I develop more creatures? Pretty self-explanatory. Sometimes it's more worth to develop your own creatures in order to contest the board rather than use an expensive AoE. Now, after I ask myself all those questions and I've decided on my game plan for the turn, it's Power Wheel time. Do I want more lands to set up for future creature placements? Do I want to draw into that possible Flame Burst for lethal? These are all questions you have to ask yourself in order to maximize your gameplay. However, clicking end turn doesn't mean you should stop analyzing the board and the game state in order to make decisions next turn. In fact, analyzing how your opponent moves, the cards they play, how they hover over their hand, what they hover over the board, that information is all crucial to hand reading, seeing what your opponent has in their hand, and will help you make your decisions come your turn. I know there's a lot of information to be digested, so don't get discouraged if sometimes you forget one or two things on the list. Over time, as you practice your decision making, this will become second nature to you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the first installment in the Get Good to Get God series. There will be more on the way every week. That's all for now, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.